Working with an Influencer Manager. Today's webinar, we're going to talk about what does an influencer manager do? And is it a right fit for you? And if it is, when is it a good time to start working with a manager? We'll be learning all of those things and more. My name is Paola Mendez, and I am the founder of the Blogger Union. The Blogger Union is a network of blogger communities dedicated to growing our members' brands and incomes through meetups, workshops, brand collaborations, and webinars just like this one. If you would like to receive email notifications for events or opportunities with brands, make sure you register at thebloggerunion.com. It's free. And my personal blog is Coral Gables Love. Our speaker today is Cristy, and she runs Talento Unlimited, which is an influencer talent agency. Welcome, Cristy.
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, it's been a busy kind of day because I was on a session earlier this morning, so I'm glad I drank cafecito. But so my background is probably more of a serial entrepreneur than anything else. I see a lot of friendly names here that I love, mujeres that I've worked with before. Many of you know me from my background in Hispanicize. I was a founding partner of that event over 10 years, and I exited that at the end of 2019 to start Talento Unlimited, and also to focus on my own blog platform that I had started in 2011 and kind of abandoned, which is Los Tweens and Teens. So for families of older kids who are out of diapers and where the real fun starts when they're tween and teen years. And I had been ignoring that platform for a long time. So in 2019, I decided to take a leap of faith and leave the team since a new group had come in. And it was time to do something new. But I had always, through my role with global PR agencies as my background, and in having been a founder of Hispanicize, but also Latina Mom Bloggers, that then we changed over to Dime Media, I had actually started within that group. I had started the talent management team. So working very specific with and it's not always about the numbers anymore, not just larger creators, but in this context, it was talent that was also on TV, but had a very strong social media. So since I started that that division within that team, I really fell in love with the idea of specifically, working with the talent to look at not only the business opportunities they had, but in general, what was their business landscape? How are they negotiating? How are they using their image for different products? So that kind of gave me the foundation for Talento Unlimited. And like Los Tweens, it's a play on words, right? It's bilingual. But we like to work with multicultural influencers. So we have influencers of color, Latinas, Latinos. I like to work with the poor guys. And so give them a break and bring them in. And so that's kind of my background. That's all merged to really focus on working with one by one. And we've grown the roster, but we haven't grown it too much. I don't want to be a network. That's why I work with Paola, right? I don't want to be a network with a huge group. I really do hone in on how do we work together to build business opportunities, content programs, but also I've now negotiated my first book deal for one of our talent. Another one is launching a product line. So it works a little bit different.
Okay,
but that's kind of a nutshell what we do. Aside from that, I get to parent my teen daughters who, believe it or not, are already 19. So that's kind of crazy. That's the other side of my life.
That's amazing. And twins, that's a lot. So wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that experience with us here today. So I guess let's get started with, what is the role of a manager in a relationship with an influencer or content creator?
It's funny because one of the questions that you had is, what is the difference between a talent agent and a talent manager, right? Technically, an agent is the one that books deals, right? So an agent is the one that works on a commission, that specifically gets roles and opportunities, both, they could be on television or on film, but really in the entertainment industry, defined as bringing work to a talent, and creating the contracts. A manager is supposed to look at the overall business landscape. They're supposed to basically work on relationships, bring the media attention, partnerships and organizations, things like that. What I have done is kind of merge the two, and which is the reason why we've kept our roster small. Is not because I've had some people say, you don't want to work with me. And I'm like, that's not the idea, right? The idea is that we've kept our group small because we are negotiating contracts. I have a lot of experience in terms of negotiating contracts. I look really, really carefully. Like, my job is to protect the influencer or the content creator. I look at exclusivity clauses and how their use and their likeness can be used and all that kind of stuff. So I work really hard to make sure that they get a fair deal. And then, so we've basically merged the role of the agent, which is to bring paid opportunities, and also the role of their overall business landscape and what does it look like.
Okay, wonderful. So when it comes to bringing them business opportunities, what is the benefit of working with a manager versus staying on your own?
So, and I get this directly from our talent, right? What they love is not dealing with the contract, right? They don't want to have to look at it with a fine tooth comb. There are some contracts that we have an attorney that we work with, that we have, on standby, if you will. There are some clauses that are beyond my ability as not a lawyer, to make sure that we're being careful. So the role for many of our partners is that they get to step outside of the contract, right? They get to step out, and the negotiation. Not everybody feels comfortable with somebody who offered you $1,000 and you feel that you should be paid $5,000, right? And that's not comfortable for everybody to have that conversation. Some people are very good at it and they well represent themselves. Other people hate it, or they just want to concentrate on creating the content. So that's what we do. The role of the agent manager is supposed to remove that negotiation. It leaves the talent to be the talent, right? To do the things that they're supposed to be doing, and to work on their content and their development, and leave the negotiation part to the person who has your best interest. So that's really the number one role, is that. It also helps to weed things out, right? Because we get so many emails, so much responses, or so much information through your social media handles. You get your messages directly. And so it allows the content creator to say, great, thanks for reaching out to me, talk to these people, and they go on with their day, right? And so it allows you to say, is that really viable? Is it fake? Is it, what is it, a real opportunity? We ask questions right from the get-go that tell us this is just trying to get your attention, or it's a real opportunity. So that's kind of the role there too.
Okay, that's wonderful. But there's an additional benefit, right? Because all of your experience with the global PR industry, you have a ton of connections that the influencers don't have themselves. So there's that additional benefit that it's easier for you to bring business because of that, right?
That's definitely part of it. The way that we work is from an exclusive standpoint, in that whether the lead comes to the influencer directly through their channels, or whether we bring the lead, we manage the business opportunity, right? And the reason for that is that I may bring you an opportunity today through one agency that is friends with another person at another agency, and that's the reason why they contacted you, right? It's really hard to know how leads come through these ways, because there's so many avenues, right, that you get leads. So what we do is we definitely work really hard to maintain relationships. Your manager is a person who is always on the phone, always talking, always communicating at one point or the other with different, industry colleagues, to that point, right? To have the kind of opportunity that's constant, that we're always looking at. If it's not for this person, it's for that person. So for sure, we bring that role, but also to be able to analyze whether an opportunity is good or not for you. There have been many times where I have suggested to a content creator that budget may look good initially, but that I don't feel that product or organization is good in general for that influencer. And that's another important role, because sometimes saying no is as important as saying yes.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a little bit about the relationship, right? And so when you are ready to start a relationship with an agent or a manager, what should you be prepared for? I know you mentioned exclusivity. What other things should you be prepared to have in mind when you're having talks with someone that you're considering to be your manager?
I think in general, it's like a marriage, right? And I think that if you pursue it like a marriage, right, you're going to date initially, right? But at some point, you're getting married, right? And so I think it's important to look at the contract. I think it's important to have all of the business terms laid out from the beginning. Like any relationship, things develop, along the way. Things can change, opportunities arise. Like, I never saw myself negotiating a book opportunity. So, but I did, right? Because it was part of their overall, it was a part of the overall landscape of what they were trying to build. So I think it's really important to have up front who's going to do the invoicing. Is the talent team doing the invoicing? Because that's a cost and a time off of you, of the influencer, right? You don't have to do the invoicing. You don't have to pursue the billing department, getting collections. There's a whole role to that. So is the talent team doing the billing? Is the talent, who is doing the reporting? Are you doing the reporting? Are we doing the reporting? So it's really important to establish sort of ground rules and guidance as to how that relationship is going to work. And there are some, to be honest with you, not everything is cookie cutter. Like, I firmly believe that every relationship has, its quirks and its differences. Sometimes we do things for one of our talent that we don't do for another, and it's because we talk through that initially. So establishing the ground rules. So my mom always says cuentas claras, right? And I know there's more to that dicho, but cuentas claras basically means, like, when you have your communication up front and clear, you avoid problems later on. And I firmly believe in that. You're always going to have disagreements. You're always going to have an issue. But I believe that if, as much as you can, upfront and clear, and benchmarks, and you need to have a shared conversation as to who is responsible for what. And if you have those roles defined, life becomes a little bit easier.
That is wonderful feedback. Now, not all managers are having our best interest as a client, as an influencer. So, are there any red flags that you could share with us in terms of things that, oh, they said that maybe that's not in my best interest, that you can, in terms of when you're having that conversation with a potential manager?
I think what's really important is that by now, most creators who are interested in having a manager are going to have relationships from the past, right? So I think that one of the things that is super fair is to establish up front what is going to be, let's say, new business, and what is going to be a renewal that's coming from a relationship that you already have. Like, you should really establish ground rules, right? And so I believe that if you have a contract that's been happening over the last 3 years, and maybe you don't want to negotiate it this year, but if it's something that's like an auto renewal and it's super easy, it really isn't fair to pay a manager 15% or 20% or whatever the percentage that you agree on. It isn't fair probably to pay for that, right? Unless they're really going to make a significant change in that contract. So I think establishing what is the current business that you have, and then where are you going, from there. They may be able to help grow it, because maybe you're only doing a little bit, right? Maybe your budget is 5,000 and you want to make it 20,000. Then you have a ground rule and you established a goal as to what you want to achieve. If that's not the case, am I signed in?
Yes, you're still here.
Okay, I got the weirdest thing. Okay. So if establish the ground rules from the beginning, as far as what's business that you're going to manage and what's business that you're not going to manage. And I lost my train of thought after that.
That's okay.
I was like, it said you are signed out. I'm like, okay.
No, you're still, luckily you're still here. So, okay. So, make clarifying new business versus existing business. That's a great thing to keep in mind when figuring out your relationship with a manager. Now,
I think the other thing, now I remembered one thing, and you should also really establish your vision and your growth, right? So let's say that right now you're concentrating on Coral Gables, right? And this is your area of expertise, but you want to take that national, right? Or you want to work with national brands that want to do things in South Florida. Okay, you have to share that vision, right? Because initially the manager may think, I only want to do food, right? Only bring food opportunities to that influencer. Well, maybe it's not food, maybe it's events, maybe it's more lifestyle. You have to share a vision for where you want to grow as a talent and as a creator, so that the manager is only as good as the information that we have. Like, I've sat down with our team, as I'm not alone. Our team has sat down with our talent partners, and we've said, okay, this is where we want to grow. We've even thought there are maybe some things that I want to invest in, right, with our partners. Maybe it's a new product, maybe it's a new platform. So when you share that vision of where you want to go and where you want to grow, that makes a big difference in helping each other grow faster, because your growth is my growth, right? So it's really how it should be seen as a relationship.
Okay, wonderful. So now that we know all of this, how do we know when we are ready to go looking for a manager?
I think that when you're starting to see new opportunities, right? So, and it's not always about the numbers. I can tell you that Los Tweens and Teens gets opportunities, and our social footprint is small, right? Like, when you compare it to some of the talent on the Talento roster, our footprint is tiny, but our footprint is really mindful, right, of where we want to go. So I think that once you start getting opportunities, getting or brands or organizations interested, they're sending you information, they're wanting to negotiate opportunities with you, it's a moment in kind of the rubber meets the road, right? Like, how do I grow? How do I want to grow? Maybe somebody asks you to sign a 6-month exclusivity that shouldn't be in there, right? Because if you're doing a campaign about cheese, then why should you sign for the next 6 months that you're not going to work with any other brand? Or maybe it makes sense that you do sign because you have one bird in hand and it makes sense, right? I think when you start seeing that your channel has traction, it has engagement, it has brands or organizations reaching out to you, that's a moment to kind of take a step back and say, what's my strategic vision and how do I grow? And possibly working with somebody will help me do that.
Okay. And okay, let's say you step back and you're like, I have brands reaching out, I know where I want to go. How would you go about finding a manager? I know we have Cristy here from Talento Unlimited. How else would we go about?
I would Google locally, right? Basically talent manager is a hashtag. It may be somebody that you don't want in your own city, right? Like, maybe if your idea is you're in Miami, but you want to grow more in Los Angeles because maybe you have an acting background that you want to develop more as well. It could be somebody based out of LA or New York that might be a better fit. there are lists, right? So there are talent manager lists. You can Google it and look it up, and they pretty much come up. You can also look in, for Florida based ones, you can look in sunbiz.org. It has a listing of businesses as well, so you can look there. We're working on our state license, so once we have our state license, it's a whole process. So once we finish that, we'll be in some extra databases and things like that. But that's an initial search. I would definitely do word of mouth. So asking people, right? I think that people, I'm happy to suggest other people if I don't feel they're a fit. I really carefully choose who we're working with, and we have turned down working on some. We have gone after working with others, right? And that's because I really do have a hybrid approach to working on the business development, but also working on their overall business. So I have a hybrid approach, which means that not everybody is a fit for me. And I also want to make sure that I can manage our growth. I hate bad expectations. I've seen what setting bad benchmarks do when you're not clear. And so in my older years, if you want to call it that, because I cover up my gray really well, I'm really focused on less is more and stronger relationships. And just because I don't manage you doesn't mean that I don't have my best interest. And I also sometimes, if I see that, because when having been part of a network, you automatically get brands that want to work with more than just the roster. And so I try to maintain a really good relationship with different influencers so that if it's not a fit for our roster, I will pass on an opportunity to somebody else. So I know it was a long-winded answer, but it's not an easy one to answer.
Absolutely. No, you gave us a bunch of avenues, so that's wonderful. But you should try Cristy first, see if you're a good fit. So wonderful. We have one more question, and then we can open it for questions from the audience. So if you have a question for Cristy or myself, feel free to add it to the chat, and we will read them from there. So Cristy, I know that you also land your talent media features. So is that something that's usual for a influencer manager?
So typically, yes, right? There are a number of PR people now that manage influencers, right? What happens is that they're usually managing them with a retainer, which means that you as the influencer are paying a monthly fee because they're doing the work of pitching media. I am looking into adding that component to Talento. If I'm completely honest, I'm looking at partnering with freelancer, bringing that position in house to kind of grow it. I haven't necessarily added it just yet because I'm mostly managing business, right? But your traditional manager does provide, mostly does PR, and they have a retainer. I work a little bit differently in that I work on a commission. I haven't started a retainer because it doesn't work with everybody, because a lot of influencers are where that rubber meets the road, right? Where they're not big enough to be sustaining a retainer of at least, $1,500 to $2,000 a month is money, right? And so I'm trying to be somewhere in the middle where I work on a commission basis, and then now looking to potentially add that component. But many influencer managers do have that PR component, and they try to pitch media as much as possible. I'm not pitching media all of the time because then I'm not doing business deals. That's why I myself am at a funny stage in growth, right? I have a couple of things that my business partner and I are looking at because we're at that middle grade, development opportunity.
Okay, wonderful. I was curious, how about when you have a relationship with an influencer and they have other income streams that are not brand partnerships and stuff like that? Like maybe they sell their own products, and is that part of your relationship? How would that work?
all in the ground rules, right? It's all in the what are you going to establish up front, right? So for example, when we started with one of our influencers, a book deal wasn't on the table, right? And so she decided that when the opportunity came, that she did want us to negotiate that on her behalf, even though her spouse is an attorney. And I was like, you sure? You don't want him to do this? We ended up working with him, right, to review the contract and making sure. But I think it's all about the ground rules. So there are many of our influencers who have product lines already. I mean, like Ana Quincoses, who's one of our talent, has Skinny Latina. Annabelle Bloom has her Baila Bloom line of clothing. What we do is that if we see an opportunity for that product line, we bring it as an individual basis, but we're not specifically repping those opportunities. So, and yet there are things that will develop from now moving forward that we could, work on with the creator. So it all is in the ground rules. I would lay that out very clearly from the beginning, whether you want that to be part of what is managed or not, and then cuentas claras. If it's up front and it's said, no one can argue.
Okay, wonderful. So Andres is asking, what is the average commission influencer talent charges?
Hola, señorita. Long time no see, Enrique. Enriqueta. Wonderful to see her. I love her. So it really varies. It can be, the average is between 15 and 20%. And so that it varies in the sense, like if you don't have, let's say if you don't have a monthly retainer, then it's usually on the higher end, because that's the money that you're not paying, right? You're not paying a retainer all month long. So it's on a per DM basis. So average is between 15 and 20%. It could be higher, again, if it's something like a new product line, or maybe it's a product that you're helping. I actually helped a brand. We started off as an influencer program, and then I helped the brand look into a potential retailer to get that brand in the retailer. And that would have been a different cost to the brand, but nonetheless opens opportunities for the influencer as well. So I would say the average is 15 to 20%, but it can vary depending on, like in California, it can be 10% if it's talent. So if it's film, radio, that sort of thing. Usually on the content side is anywhere from 15 to 20%.
Okay. And so it's 15 to 20% plus the retainer, which you think is about 15 to 2,000?
No, that can be without the retainer. So the
Okay.
retainer depends on, let's say if you're doing services like PR, specifically like PR services. So you can have two different things. You can have a retainer for those services, and then you can have a percentage of sale for the content programs. So they can be separate, or they can be together. In my case, I'll be, because I'm very transparent. So at this moment, I'm not doing a retainer, but I'm looking at adding services to our group. So once we add more services, we may add a retainer, but for right now, we work on commission.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I believe that was our last question. Cristy, thank you so much for coming here and sharing all of your insights with our community. Do you have anything upcoming that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, we are going to be announcing, because we're doing events. So I'm very excited to use my event expertise. We're going to be, you'll see the announcement of a large film festival. And so we're going to be managing the sponsorships for that event. But aside from that, we're also going to be working with the brand sponsors of the event on their influencer activation strategies. So we're excited to potentially, that's something that may lead outside of only our roster. So make sure and email me, connect with me. I'd love to bring other opportunities. And my email is very easy. I'll put it here in the chat, the Cristy at talentounlimited.com. But so we're going to be announcing that very soon, that we're going into events as well, and then with activation. So that's going to be fun. So we have
Hey.
that. And then on the Los Tweens and Teens side, we're relaunching the website, and there's like new ads and new things happening there too. And one thing that we do on that, one thing I wanted to say for everyone to pay attention to from a talent management standpoint is that I think that collaboration is huge right now, right? So one thing for Los Tweens and Teens that we have done is create a team of contributors. And so what happens with we'll share, content from some of our food influencers. We share content from, local activities. We share experts. And the important thing about that is that if there's a paid opportunity, we also share that, right? So I would say as a talent manager, look at opportunities in terms of collaborations with other influencers. Obviously set ground rules, who's going to share what and who's going to do whatever. But I think collaboration leads to bigger opportunities because brands look at, you can work with different people. So just a piece of advice.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that's so exciting that everyone who attended this webinar has a new brand opportunity. So make sure you reach out to Cristy for partnering with her upcoming events. So thanks again for joining us today, and thank you all of our participants for attending. We have other webinars in the works. Make sure you visit thebloggerunion.eventbrite.com for our calendar of upcoming events. We have how to build your website on WordPress on May 4th, I believe. And then following that, we're going to have our SEO 101 workshop. So make sure you check all of that out. Other than that, I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and thank you, everyone. Bye.
Ciao.